Welcome to Truth Anchored, where we discuss apologetics, theology, and everyday questions that come up in evangelistic encounters. My name is Brandon Enchant, and I am an intern with Apologetics for the Church. I'm an ordinary Christian with no formal background, but a desire to grow deeper in my faith and to make Christ known to those around me. Welcome to episode 3. I hope you guys have been enjoying what's been going on so far with the podcast, with the YouTube channel. That's right, there is a YouTube channel, so if you do not know, I don't know why I'm pointing at the camera. If you're listening and you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this, if you have not subscribed and you wish to support the channel, support the podcast, you can subscribe on YouTube by looking up Truth Anchored, where you can actually see this episode and you can see the last episode too. So today I'm actually joined by Lauren D'Antonio, who is the social media marketing strategist behind Apologetics for the Church, and with 14 years of experience in marketing and degrees in communications and biblical studies. So she helps shape our social presence, and she serves in a variety of different ways, but I'll let her kind of take that away and just tell us a little bit about yourself and say hi.
Hi.
So you're involved with Apologetics for the Church. So what exactly
Yes.
do you do with Apologetics for the Church?
Pretty much have all the passwords to the social media. So whenever our graphic designer comes up with some graphics, and often, there's social media captions, etc., I just post them at the proper times, making sure the hashtags are all good and the comments are there as well.
So everyone basically comes up with the content and then pushes it to you, and then you're the one that puts it out there in a timely manner.
Yes.
And then puts hashtags and kind of really makes it known.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Thank you for your help. So it's really neat because we kind of both came on board with this ministry somewhere around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we met Dr. Mark Farnham a little bit over a year ago now, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Well, you've known him before, though.
I did. So he's a professor at Lancaster Bible College, where I graduated from, although I don't think he was a professor when I went there. I think he came right after I left, but he goes to my gym as well. And that's where I met him. And he remembered my name, which was wild because I don't remember anyone's name. So,
Well, Mark is, he's got a memory like an elephant.
yeah.
Especially with all the content and information that he has in that dome of his.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Jeff. I mean, those guys, it's a divine, I don't know what I'm saying, but
gift.
it was a God thing to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying?
I was just saying it's a gift. So
It's a gift. Well, that too. It is a gift for sure. So you're also involved at Calvary Church, where we both attend. So what do you do there?
I'm involved in our adult Bible fellowship group, hosting sometimes when we have events at my house. And then I'm also involved in the worship ministry, singing on stage from time to time whenever I actually have time, because it's way more of a time commitment than you'd think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with all the music to learn. And
because I can't read music, so I have to just memorize it by listening to it over and over and over. And the tracks that they edit aren't exactly, the actual singing you're going to hear on stage. So sometimes it's just a person just singing over the track in the alto. And you're like, oh man, I have to listen to this 15 times to remember it. So,
well, I'm sure a lot of non-singers out there have no idea what you're talking about, but
probably not.
it is, yeah, it's not a production, but there's so much more involved with being on the worship team. I used to be on the worship team at my old church. I was on the worship team for a while, actually. So it's been a while since I've been involved with that. But what kind of hobbies are you into?
Watching anime is a big one. It's kind of a recent hobby. I blame Brandon for that one.
Hey, fellow weebs out there.
Yeah. Rock climbing, which I just came from. So did Brandon. I climb at the gym he's a manager at.
Mm-hmm.
Really into decorating, interior design, anything, starting with my house, but also hoping to be able to help other people as well soon decorate their house, even outdoor. I really just enjoy decorating a lot.
So do you think that creative eye has contributed to your whole marketing thing that you do? Because you do marketing with FedEx also.
I do. No, it doesn't, because the marketing I do for my day job is just a strategic kind of overview. I don't actually create any kind of ad content, and that's
Mm,
where the creativity would come from. I guess I use creativity, but it's more or less figuring out a strategy for the customer to be able to get more revenue and sell more.
mm, okay. But you, in terms of creativity, not only do you enjoy design and things like that, but you
Mhm.
also you also record your own music too. So you don't
I
just sing on the
do.
worship team, but there's actually music out there on the internet that people can
Uh-huh.
listen to.
All they have to do is look up my name, Lauren D'Antonio. Spotify, SoundCloud has a bunch of old stuff, but anywhere that music is found, I have some music out there. It's
There you go.
older because music's really expensive to record, but it's still there nevertheless.
Well, you just released a song not too long ago,
I
Lockdown.
I did, but I started recording it in 2018. So most of it is from 2018. The very finishing touches is from this year.
Hmm.
So
Well, if you get a chance, look it up. I actually really like that song. I think it's awesome, and your voice sounds awesome on it.
thank you.
Uh huh. But so moving on to like social media and stuff. So
Mhm.
the theme, I guess, the subject of this podcast episode is more so like what's going on in the social media arena in terms of like what people are talking about with when it comes to religion, when it comes to Christianity, or even just I guess social political topics,
Mhm.
things like that. Like what's the climate out there? Are people still talking about the existence of God? I mean, I know that you listen and watch a lot of religious type uh, social media content.
Mhm.
I do too. It's hard not to because
Mhm.
that's like if you're a Christian, you're constantly trying to build your faith and look these things up. Then your feed is just going to be inundated with more and more Christian content,
Mhm.
or at least you hope so. But then the comment sections are just wild, and the conversations that happen out there are insane. So,
Yeah.
what are people talking about?
So the biggest issues I'm seeing on social media currently, in relation to faith, are social justice issues. We're seeing a lot of abortion now with the whole Roe v. Wade turnover. A lot of arguments over women's rights. A lot of conversation about immigration. Of course, racism. There's a lot of that still on there as well. It
Hmm.
seems like the majority of conversations get political to some extent, and it's very heated. Left is far left, and right, is further from that far left, and it's just very divided online and very heated would be the right word.
So, so you said a lot of issues such as immigration, abortion. You said racism.
That's still an issue
Really?
online. Yeah.
Like which races? Like what's going on?
It's just like, oh, wearing braids is racist and people going in comments about that. It's just
Oh,
nothing new when it comes to that, but it's still on there.
hmm. Very interesting. So you, what do you think? Do you think that it's worth it to get involved in these topics in these conversations, or do you think that it's a certain kind of person that's instigating these things?
I mean, a lot of it is people trying to go viral with their question or their statement. There's still a lot of what's called rage bait on there, which is you just say something kind of off the wall in hopes that people just start commenting. You see a lot of that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's all different kinds of questions. There's all like statements. A variety of people posting on there. But it doesn't matter if they're conservative or liberal. There's always people in the comments trying to argue and fight in it.
What do you think Christians should do? Do you think that they should step into this and try to contribute something and try to answer these questions? Do you think they should take the bait?
So, from my experience from taking the bait sometimes,
Mhm.
your best strategy is just to ask questions and to get that person to defend their statement. When you try to argue your point or, um, disagree with them, it's just going to turn into an argument. The purpose I believe for Christians and social media is to get people to question. Like you talked about the whole stone in your shoe thing. They walk away from that conversation thinking. So you're probably not going to convert anyone on social media unless maybe you have a direct message conversation, but not in the comment section. But you can use the comment section to just engage people, get them to question their own statements.
Mm-hmm. So you referenced the stone in the shoe thing, which no one's going to know what you're talking about because that was the rough attempt we did trying to flesh out this episode. So what she's referring to is it's a tactic from Greg Koukl's book called Tactics. And there's a whole section in there is talking about putting a stone in somebody's shoe. And for those of you who have read the book, you know what I'm talking about. But you basically say something or ask a question or basically plant a seed that causes the person on the receiving end to really mull it over and think about it and contemplate what was mentioned or what was talked about even after you're not there. It's a way to like put them in a position of discomfort so that they'll have to come back to it. Because if you have a stone in your shoe, you can do all that you can to try to wiggle your toes to move the stone out of the way so you can have a brief moment of comfort, but then eventually it's going to creep back under your foot again. You're going to have to take your shoe off and examine it. So if we say something that causes them to really think about it, then they're going to have to examine what it was that is causing them so much discomfort. So I like what you said about asking a lot of questions because it doesn't put us in a position to presume what their motivation is for whatever they're saying. So we can really let them unpack it themselves.
Yeah.
And like you said, dismantle themselves as well.
Yeah. I mean, just a simple, what do you mean by that statement? And just get them to explain themselves. And then you could be like, well, what about this? Or can you explain further? Or what brought you to that conclusion? Or what kind of facts can you give me to back up your claim? Just great ways to just get them, again, to defend their own position.
Yeah, and Dr. Mark Farnham does a really good job explaining these simple questions we can ask in his book, Every Believer Confident, like, what do you mean by that? Or what evidence led you to that conclusion? Because we can't just make statements. And a lot of people make statements that are completely arbitrary. There's no evidence to back it up. So if you ask them to defend and back up and explain what it is they're saying, they actually have nothing behind it most of the time. And if they do have something, then you can start trading ideas. But 1 Peter chapter 3 tells us how we should go about doing that, which I think is very important because when we get on the internet, we want to be keyboard warriors. We have that temptation to do that. I'm sure you've dealt with that too, because we want to be reactionary sometimes because we see something so just crazy that we almost have to answer, and sometimes aggressively to it. So 1 Peter 3:15, and this is like what every apologist comes back to, but it says, "But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander." So gentleness and respect. Do you see a lot of that in the social media conversations?
That's very rare to see.
Yeah. Even between Christians, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So do you think ultimately, have you seen a lot of fruit from these conversations that you have with people?
I haven't. I've seen some, but those people you could tell were actually wanting to know. They're actually seeking. They weren't just trying to go viral. So you kind of have to use wisdom to discern that. Is this person genuinely asking a question, or are they just trying to get attention?
And like you said, you would deal with that in the DM section, not in the comment section, right?
Yeah, I've told people before, hey, if you would like, book suggestions or want to talk further, feel free to message me.
Mhm.
you have a character limit on the comment section
Oh,
on
right,
social
yeah.
media.
Mhm.
So it's really, especially on TikTok, really difficult to say anything. So you have to keep commenting under your comment. You're like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny because I made a video on my TikTok that ended up kind of going crazy. Sort of crazy. I mean, it got like
Mhm.
maybe 65,000 views or something like that, or likes. I can't remember. I could pull it up, but I don't want to waste time. But it was the video. I mentioned it in the last episode about my pastor picking up the cello and doing that whole illustration. Well, I made a TikTok video about that, and I used the clip from that. And there were so many people that were actually really moved by what he did. And then there's, of course, people in the comment section that are like just still bashing Christianity,
Mhm.
and usually for the wrong reasons. So yeah, no matter what, you're going to come against a lot of opposition, even when you're just trying to make a simple point of like, hey, sometimes Christians will hurt you and
Mhm.
sometimes they play Christ poorly,
Mhm.
but here's the reality.
Yeah.
People just want to take the love and grace of God and just shove it back in his face and just be like, yeah, right.
You know what helps though is thinking it through the frame of the people that do comment angrily or just very adamant online. Either God didn't show up for them the way they thought he should, or someone who claimed to be a representative of God hurt them.
Mhm.
So they're coming from a place of pain or anger. Like there's a lot of wounding inside of them. Because I've met atheists who just didn't care. They were just like, whatever. The majority of them aren't like that, and they always have some kind of past. So if you just see it that way and just show some compassion and understanding of there's some hurt there because they're overreacting to something like this, it helps you not feel like you really have to defend yourself so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and for the next episode, where I'm actually going to dive into that a little bit more about the reasons people don't believe, but that'll be a later episode.
Teed you up there.
Huh?
I teed you up there for the
You
next
teed
one.
me up.
Wow.
Oh man. Okay. So, in my opinion, personally, from what I've experienced, it has not been really all that beneficial to start those conversations in the comment section
Mhm.
for me.
Mhm.
But you made the point about the DM section. So in that section, you can definitely get an idea of people's heart,
Mhm.
because there's one specific person that I'm thinking of that I've had many messages back and forth with.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
all they want to do is just spew their opinions, and they don't really want to they don't really have an open mind as far as what you have to say. They only
Mhm.
want to say what they want to say.
Mhm.
And who knows, maybe a lot of people see Christians that way too.
Mhm.
So I think it's important that we examine the evidence no matter what. So we have to be good what is it, Bereans, so
Mhm.
they say,
Mhm.
and do further study so that we do have a reason to reject what they say or believe what they say,
Mhm.
instead of just blindly believing it or rejecting it.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, use wisdom with who you interact with on social media. Determine, do they actually want to talk about it? Do they have questions, or are they just wanting to argue with you? On the alternative side, you never know what your words actually, like how much it actually affects them. So they might be just arguing with you and you feel you're talking to a brick wall, but they might actually be thinking about what you're telling them.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess we'll never know, right?
No, and all we can do is just speak the truth, as it says, respectfully, kindly, if we can. I know no one's perfect, and sometimes we are going to get frustrated, but that's what grace is for. But if you do want to get involved online, my advice would be ask questions, get them to defend their point themselves, and if possible, try to get to direct messages instead of the comment section, because you're going to be able to have much deeper, well thought out conversations than you are in the comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is really every flavor of Christian out there. It is crazy.
Yeah.
No matter what topic it is, it's insane. So the best thing we can do is know the word of God,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the best thing we can stand on. Let God's word be the stumbling block to any opinion that we have out there. Because the first part of verse 15 of 1 Peter chapter 3 says, in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. So if we don't revere him as Lord, and we basically revere ourselves, we put ourselves on the throne, and we hold our pride to more importance than honoring God, then of course we're gonna say terrible things. Mm-hmm. We're gonna lash out. We're gonna be the angry, bitter, ornery Christian. I hate that I just said ornery. That's such a Lancaster thing. I take that back. Anyways, so if we're so concerned with our pride, we're gonna be another reason for someone to dislike Christians. So we must revere Christ as Lord. That way we can then speak with gentleness and respect.
I mean, ultimately, if they're arguing with you, they're rejecting God and his word. It really doesn't have anything to do with you at the end of the day. Even though you're the messenger, you're not the message itself.
True. If you're speaking truth. If you're speaking babbly nonsense, then maybe you need to examine yourself and see, maybe I was an idiot in that comment. Maybe I shouldn't have responded or reacted that way. Yeah, because the internet's a brutal place and we can get trashed on. And more than likely, things that I post, I'm going to get trashed on. Welcome to the internet. So anyways, what's your, from being in marketing, being on involved in that whole realm so often, and being a Christian, and you probably already covered this, but in a nutshell, summarize, like, what's your advice for Christians who feel tempted to engage in these conversations?
I mean, you can engage, but as I had mentioned, just ask questions. Seek to understand first what they're actually trying to talk about, what their point actually means. Oftentimes people say things, but they don't even know what they're saying at the time. Mm-hmm. So what do you mean by that? Can you explain further? Just get them to explain themselves and to defend their argument. You don't have to immediately just get in there and start arguing. Getting them to dismantle their own argument is way better than you saying, actually, no, the Bible says this, which isn't wrong. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if they make a kind of wild claim, then they should be able to back it up.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, so if people want to find you on social media, how do they do that?
My social media handle on any platform of social media is just Lauren D'Antonio. No apostrophe in the handle, though, because computers don't like apostrophes very much. Mm.
Well, that was on the screen for all you people that don't know how to spell D'Antonio.
Very Italian.
Yeah. And if people want to find your music, that's on, like you said, Spotify, SoundCloud, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Just Lauren D'Antonio. Yep. With an apostrophe, mind you.
Yes, actually.
And if you want to see what she's doing in terms of the ministry, obviously go ahead and follow Apologetics for the Church and Every Believer Confident.
Yes, that's the Instagram handle.
And the podcast. Mm-hmm. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed any of the episodes so far and you want to support me in any way, or if any of these episodes have blessed you, please make sure to share this episode. And on the YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like it, and leave a comment. Let us know what's your experience with engaging in conversations on social media about Christianity or social political issues. What would your advice be? Let us know in the comment section down below. And I believe you can comment now on Spotify.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So do that, because that's interesting. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you again for being here for this episode. Thank you, Lauren, again for being here.
Of course.
And no matter what trials come our way, whether it's on, out in the real world or on the internet, let's do our best to stay anchored. God bless, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.